Hey everybody, it's Chase. I'm back working on the Dirt Runner. Last time I did a how-to video was for the Cali raised off-road sliders. So now I'm going to do the Eibach Pro lift for the TRD Pro. So I already got my truck with the jack stand underneath it. I loosened all the wheel lug nuts, so let me get going. Alright, so here's some of the tools that we're going to use. I got a 14mm socket, 17, 19, 21, and 22. Some pretty basic hand tools. And I also got a spring compressor. Now, this one, since it has like a narrow tooth, this should work on a coilover really well without scratching the shock body. But that's what I'm starting with. And first, now I got the wheels off. I'm gonna take the skid plate. So those are 14, you got 4 of those 14mm bolts. So two things I just learned was, one, there's supposed to be like this kind of like washer safety nut so it doesn't come off. Apparently one side didn't have it. But yeah, got the skid off, wheels off. Now we're gonna attack the fox shocks. So we're gonna loosen this front and rear on both sides. So you have one here and then one right on the other side. Then we're gonna take off this nut or bolt and this bolt, as well as the lower shock bolt. And remove that pin. All right, so I loosened those, removed the shock bolt, 2 bolts right there, and the swing, the lower control arm swings freely. Now you're gonna move up to the top, take care of, there's three of those? Yeah, 3 of these. 1, 2, one on the back side. I believe those are the 14mm. Let's see, or maybe 17. Yeah, 14. So I'm gonna take care of that right now. 14mm. A little extra leverage. There we go. Just to loosen them up. Alright guys, we're going to do the unboxing. I got it's not really old, but the OEM spring and coil out. I'm going to check out the new one. They'll go on there. Get a little sticker pack. You know, I don't really like stickers on my vehicle, but take your own. Here's the new fronts. Doesn't specify, doesn't look like which one will be the right or the left. Yeah, same part numbers and everything. What they look like when they're sitting next to each other. Then we got the rears, which I'll do later, but currently working on the fronts. So get this guy taken apart, swap it out, and then put it right back in. In order to do that, you gotta take off the nut on top, which I believe is a 14. Oh no, it's a 17. My bad. 17,000. I don't have it with me right there. It's over on the floor over there. So, take a 17. First, you're gonna wanna compress the spring, then loosen the nut, and then reverse order, put the new one on. So, I will make note of how this sits. I'm gonna want the, I don't know, do I want the Eibach spring logo out front? Yeah, why not? Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. So here's a side-by-side. Try to make it as level as possible. You can kind of see, it's supposed to be 1.6 inches difference, so now I gotta put the Eibach ones in. All right, so here's what happened yesterday. I feel like I failed myself, but only because I didn't have the right tool, the right spring compressor. So I'll show you what I used. I ended up going down to my friend's shop, used his wall-mounted spring compressor because it was much easier to use and it was safer on the shock body. So let's kind of review. So let me show you what I'm talking about. With the TRD spring, I was able to compress within this boot area, which, you know, has play. You have just the little shaft in there. And so the little hooks could go further inward without damaging anything. I could compress it, take the top hat off, and be fine. When I wanted to compress the Eibach spring, I wanted to go from a wider compression because it's a higher spring rate and it's taller. I needed to compress it more. And I was not allowing the spring compressor to go in without making contact on the shock body, which I didn't want to gall up. So let me show you the kind I used and kind of explain it. So this is the style that I was trying to use. I could remove them, but I couldn't install them. But basically what would happen is if you positioned your coil right here, and as soon as you started tightening it up, your coil gets forced into the very lowest part, which is pretty obvious. But then that pushes out this hook, which makes contact with the shock body. So it wasn't ideal, but luckily I had my buddy that had a shop with a wall-mounted one, and I was able to get them put on. So now I just got to put it all together. So let me set up the camera and go at it. All right, so I got everything put back together. I will have to go, well, I'm gonna get ready to set her on the ground, then tighten up everything to torque, and I'll go through those specs once I'm done. And I also still gotta put on the skid plate, but I gotta tighten up that bolt first before I do that. So let's get her down. Hey, what's up, good people? I finished the front suspension on the 4Runner, and now I'm gonna work on the rear. So got it on jack stands. I'll take measurements later, but this is where we're at right now. So let's go over the tools you're gonna need for the rear. You got a 19mm socket, a 17, a 12. I just got a joint out just in case, extension just in case, and then 12mm and 17mm wrench compact drill. So let's look at what we're gonna be removing. So we're gonna go ahead and take this out. We are also gonna remove your upper sway bar link. And see if I can find it. There it is. Lower shock bolt right there. So once we get all those off, and the wheels of course, then we can open it up, remove the spring, swap it out with the Eibach, and be done. Put it all back together. Then I can take measurements after I get my wheel alignment. I already did before measurement, so I'll post all those results, multiple locations. Okay, so I did the driver's side, now I'm gonna do the passenger side. We remove that. Basically gotta hammer or pry the lower shock off, and then we can lower the axle, and the spring just pops right out. That's pretty simple actually. So it's probably gonna take me about 45 minutes to do the rear, where, you know, that's pretty fast. So anyways, that's where on the first side I didn't have the jack supporting the axle, and it just kind of like flopped out, but I'm give it a little bit of support, that way it doesn't put any unwanted stress anywhere. Plus this is a lot easier than the other side. The other side I had to kind of use a hammer, it had all the tension on it. I'm gonna go ahead and use a hammer. I have a rubber mallet, but that doesn't work. So, piece of block of wood, and then the hammer. Good trick. There it is. So that's nice and loose. Drop the axle. And the spring should just pop right out. So I gotta kind of, there's this, I don't know if you can see this right here, but the way the spring perch is, kind of have to pull down on the axle to get it all the way out. There it is. Boom. Most importantly, you make sure your bump stop, but you do want the bottom of the coil to sit on the stop on the spring perch. And you'll also have to pry to get this in because it's bigger. Oh, I did it. Push down. There it sits. Basically reverse it. Okay, so then I gotta jack it up and make the lower shock go back onto that spindle. Let's see what they're at. Now, this definitely helps if you have two people, but I'm gonna get creative. Use some toes. Probably should never do, especially in sandals. One more. There we go. About right. And take your block and your hammer and get that back on. There it goes. Put your bolt back in. And put your sway bar. So you got your grommet, washer, nut in that order. And it goes right back into there. Yeah, like that. Put it all back together. Once you do that, you put your end link in, tighten it all up, and you're done. All right, I got all the suspension put back together, sway bar, link, up, a lower shock bolt in. Now I need to torque them all down. New springs are in, looking good. And now I will say, one of the kind of, I guess, struggles with the rear suspension that I had was this lower link bolt. So this guy, getting the hole to line up after I had everything already basically put back together. Now I'm not saying this is the safest way or the correct way, but it worked for me. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the most dangerous ways. But I put a jack on a 4x6 for some support, and then I had to push the axle to the right on the passenger side just a hair to make that bolt line up correctly. Again, not the safest. You can see the jack stand's just lifting because it's being forced to the right a little bit. So, you know, I wouldn't suggest doing it, but it worked for me. Do it at your own risk. But it got in there. Now I got to torque everything down. And yeah, well, I'm gonna put the wheels on, put it on the ground, and then torque everything down. That's it. Hey, 4Runner family. Sorry I forgot to take some photos of the truck after the spring install with stock tires. I did film me measuring before, after the spring install with the stock tires, and I took some stills from that. So here's kind of an idea of what it looks like. It's not the full truck, but it might help you out. And then I also did the measurements after I added the 285 70/17s. So look out for that video. If you found this video helpful and instructional on your spring install, give me a thumbs up, or you just liked it, smash the subscribe button and comment below. I do like to respond because when people respond to my comments on their videos, I find it very helpful and courteous. So I'm gonna try and do the same thing. But yeah, see you guys in my next video. Hope you like it. Peace out.